Imagine living next to a man for 30 years, a man who smiles at you every single morning, helps you fix your car, and spends his weekends fishing with his buddies. He is kind, quiet, happily married, and everyone in the neighborhood consider him the perfect husband and a neighbor who wouldn't hurt a fly. Imagine this exact same man long before you ever met him, when he was just a 13-year-old boy, walked into the bathroom while his pregnant mother was taking a bath, aimed a revolver at her head, and pulled the trigger without his hand shaking for a second. And then he turned around to hunt down his father. This isn't it the opening scene of a Hollywood horror movie. This is the real life story of a Charlie Brand, the boy who killed and then walked among us for 3 decades as a completely normal human being, until a stormy day in 2004 when the power went out, forcing those closest to him into his home, where they uncovered the true nightmare. A secret that made him one of the strangest and most dangerous hidden serial killers in American history. A secret that will make you look at your own polite neighbor and ask, who are you really? Pour your coffee, lock your door, and get ready, because what you are about to hear today will reshape your fears. Let's turn back the clock to the evening of January 3rd. 1971, the Brand family was completely ordinary American family. The father Herbert, the mother Eileen, who was 8 months pregnant, 13-year-old Charlie, and his 3 sisters. No history of violence, no police calls, picture perfect. That night, Charlie was in his room watching television. Suddenly, with no warning and no family argument, Charlie stood up, walked to his father's closet, and drew a .22 caliber pistol. He walked with steady steps toward the bathroom where his mother was bathing. He opened the door and shot her at point blank range. Eileen and her unborn child died instantly. Hearing the gunshot, Herbert rushed to the bathroom only to find his 13-year-old son pointing a gun at him with absolute coldness. Charlie fired, hitting his father in the chest. Despite bleeding heavily, Herbert fought for his life. He managed to disarm the boy and ran to the neighbors, screaming, "Charlie shot us." When the police arrived, they found Charlie sitting quietly in the couch. He wasn't crying, he wasn't scared, he showed zero remorse. He was like a machine that had been turned off after completing a task. When investigators asked him, "Why did you do it?" do you know what his answer was? He simply said, "I don't know. I just felt like it." This is where the biggest legal loophole in Indiana's history at that time opened up. Under 1971 laws, a 13-year-old could not be tried as an adult for murder. Psychiatrists demand him to have suffered a sudden psychiatric break, and he was placed in psychiatric hospital for children. But the biggest shock wasn't the crime itself, it was his father's decision. Just 1 year later, Herbert, the man who nearly died at his son's hand, decided to get Charlie released. They backed up, moved to Florida, and started a new life under one strict condition. No one, not even Charlie's sisters, was ever allowed to speak about that night again. The crime was effectively erased from public memory. Charlie grew up in Florida. He went to school, graduated, and became a highly skilled electronic technician. He was brilliant, quiet, and obsessed in an incredible knack for work with interact, delicate machinery. In 1986, he met a woman named Terry. Terry fell deeply in love with this gentle, soft-spoken man, and they married. They lived in a beautiful home in Big Bend Key, Florida. To Terry and all their friends, Charlie was a dream husband. He loved fishing, going out on boat trips, and was locally famous for this incredible skills at cleaning and filleting fish with a surgical speed and precision. Keep that detail in mind because it is the master key to the mystery. For 30 whole years, Charlie never raised his voice at his wife. He never got into an argument with a neighbor. He visited his sisters and attended family barbecues. His in-laws literally referred to him as Saint Charles. But behind this gentle mask, there were tiny cracks. If anyone had looked closer, history may have changed. Charlie absolutely refused to see doctors. If he cut himself, he would stitch his own wounds at home. He was deeply obsessed with anatomy textbook and human organs, and he fiercely guarded his small home office, banning anyone from touching his things. Most terrifying of all, Terry, his wife of 18 years, had absolutely no idea that her loving husband had executed his pregnant mother as a child. She was living with a stranger. Meanwhile, a dark shadow was growing across Florida while Charlie was living his happy married life. Florida police were facing a gruesome nightmare. Women's bodies were occasionally turning up in nearby area, surfeit with a terrifying medical precision, leaving zero clues behind. The police had no connections until Hurricane Ivan struck in 2004. In September 2004, Category 4 Hurricane Ivan devastated the Florida coast. The power grid failed and chaos filled the streets. Charlie and Terry's home was severely damaged, forcing them to evacuate. Terry's niece, a vibrant and deeply loved young woman named Michelle Jones, called them from Orlando. Come stay at my place until the storm passes. On the night of September 13th, 2004, the three of them were at Michelle's house. They had dinner, shared drinks, and everything seemed perfectly normal. But late into the night, inside that locked house, something snapped. The next day, Michelle completely vanished from contact. Her co-workers grew worried because Michelle was highly responsible. They called the police for a welfare check. When officers arrived at Michelle Jones' home, it was eerily quiet. They knocked but no one answered. They unlocked the door and stepped inside, and nothing could have prepared them for what was waiting in the dark. The smell hit them first. In the living room, police found the wife Terry slumped in the couch, dead from multiple stab wounds. But it was the bedroom that contained a horror so absolutely even a homicide detective staggered back. The body of a young Michelle Jones was hanging completely dismantled with surgical anatomical precision. Her head had been removed and her organs were meticulously extracted. It was a job that could only be done by a surgeon or someone with expert mastering of filleting. Detectives initially thought the killer had fled. They began searching the house, the yard, and the garage. And when they pulled open the garage door, they found Charlie Brandt hanging from the ceiling. He had taken his own life after completing his macabre masterpiece. The killer was dead, the victims were gone, case closed. Right. No, the story that deeply retailed the FBI and all of America. When Orlando police began looking into the background of this polite technician, they hit a brick wall. The man had spotless record, no traffic tickets, no arrests, nothing. But a brilliant detective decided to contact his estranged family back in Indiana. When he did, a decades-old bomb exploded. Charlie's sobbing sister told the detectives he did it again. Charlie killed his mother 30 years ago. The Florida detectives were stunned. The perfect neighbor had been a killer since childhood. The FBI and Florida law enforcement instantly realized they weren't dealing with a sudden crime of passion. They were looking at a secret serial killer. He had lived among them for 30 years without raising a single red flag. A task force was immediately assembled to review every unsolved cold case in Florida over the past 3 decades, specifically focusing on cases involving the precision mutilation of bodies. The results were chilling. Take the 1989 case of Sherry Bershaw. Her body was found brutally mutilated and placed in a boat, just a short distance from where Charlie Brandt lived at the time. The method and cuts were 100% matched to what he did to Michelle Jones. Furthermore, records showed Charlie was out on a fishing trip that exact night. The FBI currently estimating that Charlie Brandt may be responsible for anywhere between 4 to 26 unsolved murders of a woman during his time in Florida. He would slip into the night, hunt his victims, fulfill the sadistic anatomical urges that begin when he was 13, and then return home in the morning to kiss Terry, make a breakfast, and help his neighbor trims the hedges. The case of Charlie Brandt remains one of the most unsettling anomalies in criminal psychology because it shatters the traditional profile. He didn't look crazy, he wasn't uneducated, and he didn't give off bad vibes. He lived a life of absolute outward perfection while harboring an eternal monster, one that was only forced out of hiding because a literal hurricane drove him out of his element. And what about Charlie's father? By covering up that first murder in 1971 to protect his son or shield the family from shame, he inadvertently unleashed a ghost who went on to steal countless innocent lives, including Charlie's own wife and her niece. We have reached the end of this dark journey. I want to hear from you in the comments below. Do you believe the father carries the moral blame for the later victims because he covered up the first crime? Or was Charlie a ticking time bomb that would have gone off no matter what?